Discipline is the silent language of respect. Confucius. Introduction. Japan, a nation where the hum of city life is precise, where children line up neatly on platforms as trains arrive with the accuracy of clockwork, and where order flows like an invisible current beneath daily life. But this order isn't born overnight. It's cultivated patiently, quietly, and deliberately, beginning with the youngest members of society. Today on the Asian Scrolls, we uncover how Japan teaches discipline to its children. This is not the story of strict rules and harsh punishments, but of a cultural system where self-control, empathy, and respect are taught as naturally as language itself. Chapter 1. Discipline begins at home. The first dojo. In Japan, the home is the first classroom, and the family is the first teacher. Discipline here is not a heavy hand coming down from above. It is a slow shaping of character, like a potter turning clay. From the earliest years, children encounter a world of small but meaningful rituals. A toddler bows instinctively when greeting a grandparent. A preschooler clasps tiny hands and says, "Itadakimasu," before eating, a phrase that literally means, "I humbly receive," acknowledging not just the cook, but the farmers, the fishermen, and even the animals who gave their lives for the meal. When the last bite is taken, they say, "Gochi susama deshita," thank you for the feast. These aren't empty words. They are lessons in humility, gratitude, and awareness of others, repeated at least 3 times a day, every day of a child's life. Work, too, becomes ritual. In many households, a 4-year-old will set the table, fold laundry, water plants, or tidy toys after play. A 6-year-old may help prepare rice, peel vegetables, or sort recycling. Parents don't present these tasks as helping mommy or earning allowance, but as their natural responsibility as a member of the household, a contribution to the rhythm of family life. Even playtime carries subtle boundaries. Toys are stored neatly, shared items are put back in place. Children learn that freedom and order can coexist, and that responsibility is not a burden but a privilege of belonging. Through these small, steady practices, discipline ceases to be something external, like a rule pinned to a wall. It becomes internal, a sense of self-respect and duty that grows with the child. By the time they enter kindergarten, Japanese children have already absorbed an unspoken truth: I am part of something bigger than myself, and my actions matter. This is the foundation upon which the rest of Japan's approach to discipline is built, a quiet training ground where respect, self-control, and empathy are learned not through punishment but through daily living. Chapter 2. The walk to school. Independence on little feet. Morning in Japan begins with a soft hum, the shuffle of small shoes on pavement, the rustle of bright yellow hats, the steady rhythm of oversized randoseru backpacks swaying against tiny shoulders. In towns and cities alike, you'll see these small figures setting off like little pilgrims, threading through alleys and across intersections without a parent in sight. To an outsider, it feels almost unthinkable, children as young as 6 walking to school alone. But here, it's not neglect. It's a lesson, a ritual, a carefully constructed act of trust. The training starts early. In kindergarten, children rehearse how to stop at the curb, how to look left and right, how to bow slightly to the driver when crossing the street. They memorize their addresses like a mantra. Teachers walk with them along the route, pointing out landmarks, helping them build a mental map of their world. By the time they're in 1st grade, most children already know exactly where to go. They travel in small groups, or sometimes alone, but always within a community that watches quietly. Elderly shopkeepers wave from doorways. Neighbors keep an eye from their balconies. Volunteers in bright sashes stand at busy crossings with flags, offering a steadying presence without smothering the child's autonomy. Every step of this walk is an unspoken lesson. Be on time. Follow the rules of the road. Be aware of your surroundings. Respect the people you meet. Freedom here is not an escape from discipline. It is built on it. And something remarkable happens in these daily journeys. A shy 6-year-old, clutching a new backpack, begins to walk a little taller. A hesitant child learns to greet the baker, to wait for the green light, to help a younger classmate cross the street. With each trip, confidence blooms. Discipline in Japan isn't just about staying within lines. It's about learning that responsibility brings independence. On these little feet, discipline becomes not a restriction but a key that opens the door to self-reliance, self-control, and a quiet, enduring sense of, I can handle this. Chapter 3. Classrooms without janitors. Cleaning as character education. Walk into a Japanese elementary school just before the final bell. Instead of the usual rush to the door, you'll see an almost choreographed transformation. Children slip on little aprons or tie handkerchiefs over their hair. Brooms and dustpans appear. Mops glide across floors. Blackboards are wiped until they shine. Even the toilets, normally invisible in other countries' school routines, are scrubbed clean by small, determined hands. This ritual is called suji, literally, cleaning time. It happens every single day, from the first grade onward. There is no opt-out list, no hired janitor waiting in the wings. No task is reserved for a particular type of student, and no task is considered beneath anyone. Everyone cleans, together. But suji is not about free labor. It's about character formation. By caring for their own spaces, children begin to understand that a classroom, a hallway, a bathroom are not anonymous public zones but shared living room. They see immediately the link between their actions and the environment they inhabit. Litter left behind today will be swept by their own hands tomorrow. Teachers participate too. You might see a principal on his knees beside first graders, polishing a corridor floor, or a math teacher wringing out a mop with a group of 10-year-olds. These moments dissolve hierarchies, showing that leadership in Japan is modeled through humility and participation, not authority from a distance. The lesson that sinks in is subtle but powerful. Discipline is not barked as, don't make a mess. It's absorbed as, take care of what's around you. Respect the people who share it. You are part of it. In this daily, unglamorous practice, Japanese children internalize something many societies struggle to teach. Responsibility is not punishment. It's stewardship. And through stewardship, discipline becomes a natural habit, a quiet dignity that follows them long after they leave the classroom. Chapter 4. Group culture over individual ego. Harmony as a habit. Step inside a Japanese classroom at lunchtime, and you won't find a cafeteria line or a staff serving trays. Instead, you'll see a quiet procession. Students roll out stainless steel carts from the kitchen, dish out rice, miso soup, and vegetables, then carry the trays to their classmates. When everyone is served, they sit together and eat at the same time. Afterward, they return the trays, wipe the desks, and stack the chairs for cleaning. This is not a one-off. It's part of daily life. The same spirit fills the calendar. Sports festivals, culture days, graduation ceremonies, all are planned and executed largely by students. Class leaders organize events, committees handle decorations, schedules, and rehearsals. The teachers guide but rarely command. Everyone takes a turn at being responsible for something beyond themselves. This constant rotation of roles is deliberate. It ensures that no child grows up thinking, someone else will do it. It shows, day after day, how the effort of one person ripples through the group. When a student forgets a duty, others wait. When a student works with care, everyone benefits. At the heart of this system is omoyari, a uniquely Japanese word that means empathy, consideration, and a quiet awareness of other people's needs. It's not taught as a subject. It's built into the routine. This is how discipline becomes something more than a list of rules on a bulletin board. It becomes a mental habit. Children start to think automatically, if I am late, others wait. If I litter, others clean. If I work hard, others benefit. By the time they leave school, this reflex to consider the group before acting is second nature. It's not discipline imposed from above by authority. It's discipline that grows from within, rooted in empathy and responsibility. And in this way, Japanese education produces not only individuals who follow rules, but communities capable of living them a harmony that's rehearsed every single day. Chapter 5. Beyond the classroom, a society that reinforces the lesson. When the final bell rings and children step out of school, the lessons don't evaporate at the gate. They walk straight into a living classroom, the streets, the stations, the shops where the same quiet principles are on display. At the train platform, people queue in neat rows marked on the ground. No pushing, no rushing. When the train arrives, passengers let others off before stepping on. In the city streets, there are almost no public trash bins, yet litter is rare. Commuters hold on to their rubbish until they reach home. Elevators have clear but unspoken rules. Stand on one side to let people pass. Keep your phone calls silent. For a Japanese child, these aren't special rules they must memorize. They're just the air they breathe. The shopkeeper who bows as he hands over change. The stranger who bends to pick up a dropped glove. The office worker who lowers his voice on the train, all model the same values taught at home and in school. This continuity between the micro and the macro creates a seamless experience of discipline. It's not an on-again, off-again demand from authority. It's a way of being. Children see that the habits they practice in the classroom, tidiness, punctuality, consideration, humility, are mirrored by adults everywhere they go. And because the environment affirms the lesson, discipline begins to feel natural rather than forced. It's not something imposed, it's something shared. A small child queuing at a bakery isn't just waiting for bread. She's absorbing a rhythm of life that will stay with her for decades, a rhythm in which respect, order, and empathy are not exceptions but expectations. This is Japan's quiet secret. Discipline is not a subject you graduate from. It is a culture that holds you, shapes you, and then trusts you to carry it forward. Japan's secret to raising disciplined children isn't a single law or program. It's an ecosystem of small, consistent practices. Rituals of respect at home, independence on the way to school, cleaning as a shared duty, teamwork as a cultural norm, and adults who model what they expect. The result is not obedience out of fear, but self-control, empathy, and responsibility woven into daily life. If you found this journey insightful, remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Your thoughts help the Asian Scrolls uncover more untold stories of Asia, where the smallest habits shape entire nations.